I'm Sarah Marks. I'm the author of Modern Persuasion, Phi Alpha Pi, and Krowlack, and the Yom Tov novelette series, and so many more things. Today I wanted to make a video before I go out and enjoy the world talking about what Patreon actually is and what I'm doing on Patreon. Because after the May special that I ran, I realized not a lot of people who read are accustomed to Patreon, accustomed to projects on Patreon, especially my circle of readers, don't seem to know what this is and why they should bother. Everybody knows what I've been working on this year because I've been working so much on it. I've had the 2 Yom Tov novelettes already out, Pour and Fling and the Matzo Ball Billionaire. Krowlack, the short story horror collection, has been out. At the end of this month, Forgive Me, I Love You comes out, the next Yom Tov novelette. For the rest of the year, I'm working on Woodhouse Hall, the next in the 21st Century Austen series, and Latkes of Love, the last Yom Tov novelette. So there's been a lot going on, and the project nobody seems to remember or know about is Write Soon. And that's because it's on Patreon. Patreon is a system that a lot of readers aren't familiar with. So I wanted to give you a brief-ish video explaining it. For me, Patreon has been something that I've supported other people on for most of the past few years. I like to watch YouTube. I know they don't get a lot of ad revenue from that, so I support my favorite YouTube creators. This means I give a monthly amount to them, sometimes $1 or $2, just so that they can continue to pay their bills. And there are so many people giving $1 to $2 or more dollars that they make this grand total of a monthly income for people. And it plays on the classic patronization system. This happened, if you remember art history classes or just history classes, the great artists of the Renaissance had patrons, had a wealthy supporter who covered all their expenses and allowed them to create art for that patron. So I, as the artist, am creating art for the people who are supporting me on Patreon. These days, a lot of wealthy people continue to be patrons of something. Theaters, museums, ballet companies, opera houses, the arts still have patrons, but they support the organization creating the art more than the individual artists themselves. So crowdsourcing has allowed us to shift a little bit back in the direction of patronization of its classic model, but instead of one wealthy person giving me all the money I need, many people give me only what they can afford, and hopefully the total will be the amount that I need to get to every month. And there's another video talking about exactly what I'm doing here on Patreon, what I'm trying to achieve, and money is a small portion of it. I want to support myself as a writer. I want to be able to write as many ideas as I have into stories, but I need to balance out my income and my time. But that's what Patreon is. This also, for authors, is a way to connect with readers in a new way. Instead of me writing a book, having some people read it as beta readers, having some people read it as editors, having a cover designer that I pick and get maybe a couple people to give me feedback on, and then finally, when it's ready to be debuted, the readers get to read the perfect final version of it. This is a little more granular. Instead of you being at the end of the production, you are involved in every phase of the production. The stories started back in March. People and I'll explain what Write Soon is. People are reading chunk by chunk the first draft of every letter exchange between two people. So they're giving feedback on that. They'll read second drafts, they'll read third drafts, they'll read the final version. They'll pick the editor with me and read their feedback. They will see cover design options and give their feedback. They will see the final version as much as they'll see the original first drafts and how bad they are compared to the final version. This is going to evolve with patrons, but in a way that somebody who buys the book when it's all done won't get. And at $1 a month for the minimum contribution, which is $12 a year, you will get the very least to read the first drafts and then get the final ebook. Leveling up, you'll get more and more involved in the process depending on how much you contribute. So what is happening on Patreon? First, it's a new location for vlog and blog content, video logs, writing blogs. I like making videos. I'm probably going to do more of them The monthly updates that I did on my blog are now videos that only patron supporters can get. That's the only way you're going to know what's going on in the writing projects, what's being put on hold, why it's being put on hold, or what's going forward, and what crazy idea I had that I just had to write down. That's going to happen. There are also going to be previews of other videos that go on YouTube. I'm playing with some video ideas to get involved in the author community on YouTube, but I think the patrons need to see things first, just as a way to give my thanks to them for their support. Short stories are going to be moved to Patreon supporters. Those used to be in my newsletter, and for every novel that comes out, there will be another short story given to the newsletter for free. But the Write Soon short stories that might connect, Woodhouse Hall short stories, horror short stories. I'm working on a second volume of Krowlak stories that just suddenly came up as that's for another video. But all of those short stories are going to be given to Patreons at different levels. The key thing that's going on there is this project called Write Soon. It's a novel written in letters. Dear Mr. Henshaw, Griffin and Sabine, LMNOP, there's tons of books written in letters, but every month, and that's the project that's entirely written on Patreon. That's the only way to get it until the final version's ready in 2020. Amber lives in Nashua, New Hampshire, a place I know relatively well. And Kyle lives in Portland, Oregon, a place I visited once and loved and would love to go back to and maybe move to someday. But the two of them meet over a letter challenge, and they start writing back and forth 2 letters per person a month at this rate. That might slow down this summer. Depends on how far ahead I get and what kind of input I need. The two of them are going to fall in love. It's a romance story about their lives and how their lives begin to connect to each other. And right now, the love story part of it is beginning to happen. You will also get to make character decisions about them, but everything on Patreon really comes down to Write Soon. You'll fundamentally get access to that. Everything else, it's just bonus features on a DVD. It's extras. If you want to read Write Soon and give your input, this is the way to do it. And it's been fun hearing from people who have been giving me feedback and ideas, not just on the site, but because so many of my supporters are also people I know and people I communicate with in other ways, it's allowed me to have conversations about it with them and have them understand what's going on. So that's what Patreon is and what I'm doing on Patreon. And watch these videos because there'll be more over time explaining all the new features, all the specials, and everything that's coming up. So thanks, and I hope you start supporting soon.